Are psychic powers the next phase of human evolution? So, in Hinduism, we have four different yugas, or phases of time, cycles in which consciousness develops and kind of evolves and devolves in phases. And kind of progress is made a little bit more every time as far as the development of our species on a deeper level. But these yugas function as a way that souls can kind of join humanity, join the process of being sentient as human beings are on this planet, from being lower species at various times of development. If human beings just kept their same amount of consciousness as far as how developed it is, and the phases of self-understanding, the phases of becoming more peaceful or more developed in a moral sense, in a cosmic sense, and we never devolved again, then it would be harder, and this is all assuming that reincarnation exists, it would be harder for species that were plants and animals to kind of hop onto the sentient bandwagon, as it were. I'll be working with a lot of Hindu assumptions here, so if this video already doesn't sound like it's for you, completely understandable, and I wouldn't fault you for it. It'd be pretty out there if I was just hearing this from this video, so understandable. But at any rate, so we have four stages, four yugas, cycles of consciousness and kind of development on this planet. And since we are the kind of apex species on this planet, and we kind of usually run things to varying degrees, then these cycles of consciousness or phases of consciousness very much affect and are explicit in their obviousness and the effects on the planet, in how it affects us as human beings. So, and we go through various changes, but we'll start at the bottom. Usually we want to start at the top, Satya Yuga, but we'll start at the bottom, Kali Yuga, time of darkness, where fear and faith are the same thing, where belief in God is fear of God, where a belief or the loyalty to a king is based on fear, or loyalty to an emperor is based on fear. And love for a ruler is a happy byproduct that happens occasionally in these phases, rather than something that's a norm. And there's a lot of conflict. There is a lot of predation, human beings against other human beings. Depending on what era it is, and what aeon it is, those things become less useful as we go forward with this. But depending on where it is and what is the nature of this particular Kali Yuga, everything will look a little bit different. But always keep in mind that with Kali Yuga, fear, all of the nastiness within us is uncovered, and it becomes the dominating factor for our existence on this planet and for how we treat the planet and each other. And we tend to function more by the law of the jungle, might is right, rather than the law of civilization, which is the weak are to be protected by the strong. And it's not just the biggest guy and the strongest or the best fighter that's in charge. It is a civilization that understands that smart people or good people are the ones who should run things, not just somebody who has big muscles and who's big, or who is very aggressive or demanding and makes other people afraid. Spiritually, this is it's very hard for consciousness in Kali Yuga to kind of think of grander, either philosophically or spiritually, grander ideals, and to embrace those ideals. Very hard, not impossible. And there's always going to be sages, there's always going to be saints, there's always going to be highly developed souls, even in Kali Yugas. But it's just the norm and the curve is much lower. Dwapara Yuga, the next phase, especially in the Dwapara Yuga that we are in right now. So this is where I need to address the overall idea of yugas and how there's a little bit of discrepancy between how most Hindus view yugas and how I and Paramahansa Yogananda and his lineage view yugas. So the lineage of Paramahansa Yogananda and his master Swami Sri Yukteswar and Lahiri Moshe, Babaji, and then we have Christ, and then we have Krishna. That's their lineage, and that's the lineage that they claim. You don't have to in this lineage, we kind of think that Christ was one of the avatars, and Krishna was too. But while Paramahansa Yogananda said that Buddha wasn't in his lineage, but Buddha was indeed still an avatar. He just got misrepresented later. But anyway, regardless, so this particular lineage, and Swami Kriyananda after Paramahansa Yogananda is who I kind of think is the most recent of that lineage. So Self-Realization Fellowship, the organization in the United States that Paramahansa Yogananda founded, does not recognize Swami Kriyananda in the same way. And Kriyananda is passed as well. But so in his lineage, they talk about the Yugas actually being much smaller segments. Like Dwapara Yuga is like 1,400 years. Kali Yuga is like 700, 800, something like that. And then after Dwapara Yuga is Tetra Yuga, it's like 3,400. I'm just giving rough estimates. And Satya Yuga is like 5,000 to 8,000 years. I can't remember. But usually Yugas in Hinduism is like between 250,000 years to like 2 to 3 million years. So there's a huge discrepancy between how his lineage views things and how most Hindus view Yugas. Kali Yuga, we're still in that for most Hindus, but according to the lineage of Paramahansa Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda. If you look up autobiography of a yogi, you'll find stuff by him, and you'll find the man that I'm talking about, and the man I respect greatly, and I kind of ascribe to what that lineage believes, just from the research and really being convinced by it, to be honest. Nobody really convinced me of it. I just kind of convinced myself of things. It can be a good thing or a bad thing. But yeah, so according to his lineage, Yugas are much smaller. And the Yuga that we are in right now is Dwapara Yuga. So we talked about Kali Yuga. In Dwapara Yuga, and I'm enunciating things more just so if you want to like type it in on the internet. But Dwapara Yuga is that's the phase where we conquer time and space. And in our heads, like, man, that sounds like some science fiction stuff. Like, what does that even mean? So in Dwapara Yuga, it's actually an ascending: Kali Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Tetra Yuga, Satya Yuga, and then it goes Tetra Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga. It's a circle, and then overall, in the cosmic scheme of things, it's kind of a spiral where things slightly gets better, but still gives species a chance to hop on board the sentience train, and so that the consciousness goes back down and back up. At any rate, Dwapara Yuga, time and space. So how have we conquered time and space right now? So this might seem like a cop-out or a strange way to kind of ascribe this, but we've conquered space kind of by radio. We can hear somebody across the world, and this is something that Paramahansa Yogananda talked about as far as like how we've conquered space. We hear somebody across the world in an instant. And with the airplane, we've conquered time. We can go through different time zones and get to a different place. And that can also be space. Time and space are very intertwined. We can get to a different place much more quickly. And we can hear and communicate much more quickly around the world and get places faster. And we're going out into outer space, and we're figuring out how to get further out and more quickly. And we're figuring out kind of how time works in relation to black holes and how cosmic time works. And we've known how the seasons work and how time works kind of basically for a long time. In spirituality, religion, and in farmers and almanacs, and just understanding how the world works. But we're starting to be able to traverse distances and understand time on a more physics level and a more quantum physics level. Even mathematicians are figuring this out because the age of consciousness is at Dwapara Yuga. We're understanding time and space in a completely different way than we did before, and we're starting to think about the Big Bang and how the elasticity of the Big Bang and how it might, everything might come back in, and the time and space is going to be understood and conquered to greater degrees. We're still going to be in that for hundreds of years, probably another, if I was to guess, 100 or 200 more years. I think I'm just kind of rough balling this. If you want to look at Paramahansa Yogananda or Swami Sri Yukteswar, or Lahiri Moshai, or Babaji, anyone along this lineage, There's a whole bunch of literature that you can buy on Kindle for like $1 where they talk about the Yugas, especially Swami Sri Yukteswar and Lahiri Moshai. But if you just look up Yogananda, which means joy of the path, joy of the spiritual path. Ananda means joy. Yoga just means path. And that's Paramahansa Yogananda's kind of like spiritual name. At any rate, so about 100 years, maybe a little bit more for a Dwapara Yuga. And we're going to get, conquer time and space more and more. So now we're getting around to what I started this with. Our psychic abilities, psychic powers, the next phase of human evolution, kind of. So I would call it an evolution of consciousness, not necessarily biology. So even for most Hindus, Darwinian evolution is a thing, but so is spiritual evolution. They kind of correlate, and they kind of correlate together. So it's a strange combination of, you usually think with religions or spirituality, we don't really think about like them believing in evolution, but spiritual evolution and physical evolution correlate for a lot of Hindus. I would say most, but there are all kinds of beliefs in Hinduism. So understanding that Tetra Yuga, the next Yuga after Dwapara Yuga, this is the Yuga of really being able to use the mind, really understanding the depths of the mind, really understanding how the brain works. We often say that we only use 10%. We only use 10% of the brain. That's because we only understand how like 10% of it works, and we kind of understand how maybe 30 to 40% works, but we just don't know in depth. And the brain, when you look at the cells or the axons and the dendrites, and it looks like a nebulous. It looks like a nebula. It looks like a galaxy. And the brain itself is a trans-dimensional organ, with the pineal gland being very vital. I often call the pineal gland the trans-dimensional gland or the multi-dimensional gland. But we're going to start understanding how the brain works, and we're going to start to be able to use it in ways that will seem kind of like magic. We're, in Tetra Yuga, let's take hundreds of years, and technology will advance along with all of this. Technology and material sciences will be right there with us, helping us to measure and like figure out how these things work, and how to say it in a way that isn't just spiritual, but have a whole new materialistic science perspective on understanding this on a more minute, step-by-step process of understanding how everything works in the brain. And how the powers of the brain are quite remarkable, and we will be able to start to develop those along with the technology. But we will, Yogananda, I can't remember if it was Sri Yukteswar or Lahiri Moshai or Yogananda, but I remember reading that we will be able to communicate just with our minds with people, around the globe to varying degrees. I mean, it's not going to be like Professor X where we're all going to be able to do it right at once, all immediately, and just going to be like that, like a cell phone call. No, it's going to be very slowly. There's going to be some people who are way ahead where they're just going to be able to do all kinds of stuff with their mind. Slightly manipulate sound and matter in a slight way. It won't be like huge, like X-Men type powers, like immediately, and probably not ever, but we're going to be able to start to really touch the fabric of reality, both time and space, and matter with our minds themselves. And we'll be able to communicate and kind of put up mental blocks and, psychic blocks so that we don't kind of get intruded upon. Some people are going to be better at than others. Some people are going to be better at projecting their thoughts into somebody else's heads. There's a few people on the planet that can do it now, and especially if you're an advanced spiritual practitioner of some kind, whether it's a cult or whether you're an advanced yogi, you can do that. But the curve is going to become more where they're going to be pulling out more, where more and more people will slowly start to be able to do stuff like that. Naturally, material development and material evolution, unconscious biological evolution, where we're not guiding it spiritually, where we are not manipulating it consciously, produces the same effects as spirituality and focus and conscious spirituality. It just does it very slowly. So that's why you have these yugas that develop, physically we just develop these ways naturally, but people are going to really start to become aware of being able to do this consciously to a greater and greater degree, and more people are going to start to be able to do that just like that. Slightly move stuff with your mind. Understanding how voice and mantra taps into the fabric of material, and being able to move things with various mantras, and the voice and the mind connected. Psychic powers being such that you will be able to meditate with a group of people and you can all think together and at once. There's already kind of technology that can do this, where I can't remember what university did this study with this experimental technology, but where all these people were kind of figuring out a problem at once with some kind of devices on their head where their thoughts they're kind of connected through, I don't know the science behind it, but some kind of frequency waves, which is incredibly vague. But through technology, we're already kind of tapping against this. We're already kind of like on that door. But even without technology, and definitely with technology, we're going to be able to sit down and meditate with each other and figure out problems, think together. The doors of our minds, the bone around our brain is not going to be as dense or as big of a barrier as we previously imagined right now at this moment. And it's going to be scary, but that's why things happen slowly. It doesn't happen just all at once. There's no giant shifts in consciousness all at once. Slowly. If you believe in the longer forms of the Yugas, very slowly. But with Paramahansa lineage, these things happen more quickly. And it seems like we're already knocking on the door with some of these technologies. Even the Muse headband that I used to meditate with, where it feeds into an app on my phone, and if my thoughts pick up, and it kind of gave me like one of those either measuring seismic shifts or somebody's heart rate, one of those, but it would hook up to an app and it could track how many thoughts I had and how ranging in emotion or intensity they were. I used to meditate with this 8 years ago, 10 years ago. The Muse headband, there's probably way better ones now. Kind of like the metal sensors attached to your brain, but not attached, it's against your skin. But it would help you meditate by, if your thoughts were more frequent or wide-ranging in their emotion or intensity, the bird sounds through the app, or the wind sounds, the wave sounds, whatever you want it to be, or waves on an ocean, would pick up. The noise would pick up, and then you would try to slow your thought. Focus on your breathing, because it would tell you to focus on your breathing, and just try to allow these thoughts to kind of meld away themselves. And I got better at meditation by using this Muse headband, but we were already doing something like that with just a $300 Muse headband 10 years ago. We're already on that level, so it's not that far of the realm of possibility, some of these mind-joining ideas. But also, there's going to be a whole lot of people who are going to be able to manipulate people a little bit easier, but a lot of people know how to prevent that, and there's going to be a whole lot of souls on this earth who are actually dedicated to just making sure everybody else is kind of safe, as far as like psychically. And we're going to be able to sense intentions better. And we're going to, assuming we get there, that we don't destroy ourselves with like nuclear war or something, and these cycles do go forward, we're going to be able to sense, because these cycles don't just judge Earth. In Hinduism, we have this understanding that there's all these galaxies in this universe, and there's millions and millions, maybe billions or trillions of intelligent life forms going through the same yugas. And while on Earth we have our particular kind of yugas, this is a cosmic thing. This is this universe thing, a multiversal thing. This is not just Earth going through its own yugas. This is happening kind of everywhere, in varying ways. And if it's a very, violent kind of planet, and some of the goodness might be slower to come, or tiny sparks. And if it's a very great planet, then these things might happen a little bit more quickly, and then everything becomes more evident in a positive way. Anyway, but this isn't just for Earth. This is for like multiversal. But yeah, so as far as communication, that will be a thing. We will be able to really sense other life forms, probably really far away, because in Dwapara Yuga, conquering time and space. But with our minds, we might be able to kind of create these little bit of wormholes where we can kind of go through the universe or multiverse and really touch things that are very hard to touch now that we can through occult and yogic powers, highly advanced. But it's going to become more common, and we might even understand it through the material sciences. And it's good. We're going to be able to touch dimensions easier, different dimensions, touch God, spirits easier, different planes of existence easier with our minds. And these powers are going to become, we can use them to our detriment, or we can use them to our advancement. And, positive, negative, in between, strange occurrences might happen. And it will open us up and other species to, us touching things that might be very dangerous in other dimensions, or in other parts of this universe. There's always there's always a possibility with more ability to have that ability squandered, misused, or work to our detriment if we don't, as a species, use it in a positive way. We will also we might be able to sense what's going to happen a little bit into the future. Time won't be as solid or as linear, and we might be able to kind of feel shifts in consciousness through, kind of sensing what's going to happen in people's minds just a little bit, and that will kind of give us like a little forewarning to things. And that might also tap into nature and the environment. We're going to start to be able to actually communicate with the animals better, understand them more on an emotional level and a mental level. They don't have thoughts the same way we do, but they do have thoughts. And we're going to be able to really tap into that and nature more and really connect with nature in ways. And the earth itself, we're going to start realizing that earth itself is conscious and the sun is conscious in its own way. And we're going to start understanding consciousness itself by actually touching it with our minds. And, I suspect that through technology, we're going to start, the technology is going to be a little bit sooner than us actually being able to touch things with our minds. Like, as a species, us being able to just do that more and more, the average person being able to do that, it's going to take a while. But being able to understand things and kind of be more communal with our environment and nature itself and animals by being able to touch their experiences and their intentions with our minds, and that has such potential to kind of meld us better with nature when we can touch the consciousness of nature itself. And it's going to become very scary for a lot of people because it happens slowly, so it's not really that scary. But there's going to be a lot of shifts as far as what we understand, and as far as like different phases when somebody dies and their consciousness kind of degrades, and how it just doesn't just go off like that. And how, graveyards, there's a whole bunch of activity to somebody like me, and I'm never born in a graveyard, I'm always interacting with energy. That's going to be something that's going to be more apparent for people. And people are going to go to graveyards more, which is strange, but I might be somebody who's a little bit ahead of the curve, not like that much, but I can place my body awareness and my consciousness, I can move it external to myself. That's going to be way easier for people in Tetra Yoga. And that's just going to be kind of like a thing that's kind of just a common thing that we do, that we can just move our self-awareness into something else, at least a little bit. It's not going to be like, you are that grave now, or you are that mound of dirt, that hill, or that, that dead person. It's not going to be like that, but just you're going to be able to sense things better, sense trees better, connect with trees better. A lot of the graveyard work is honestly touching things with your mind, with your consciousness, and understanding consciousness in a way that's really hard to explain in language. And I try to in my videos, but it's difficult. But yeah, psychic powers, are they in the next phase of human evolution? Yes. Conscious evolution, and physically we are going to evolve. But the evolution in consciousness is going to be more dramatic than our physical evolution in the immediate future, especially with Tetra Yoga, especially considering if we think about Yugas in thousands of years rather than hundreds of thousands or millions of years. We are going to evolve physically, but the evolution of consciousness will bring about the psychic powers that will be the next phase in human evolution. And once again, as the kind of dominant species on this planet, a lot of what we do and realize will affect a whole lot of what this planet looks like, and how other species relate to us, and what the area around our planet looks like, and the signature that we give off to anything looking at us from other dimensions or other galaxies or other solar systems in this galaxy. At any rate, I hope this was interesting. I hope this wasn't too weird or too off or too long. But if you thought any of this was interesting and want to leave a comment asking a question, or just saying, hey, this was good, or interesting, that helps traffic to the channel. So feel free to leave a comment down there in the comment section below. Hit that like button, like this video. That also helps traffic to this channel, and it helps more people see this video. And share this wherever you like. But overall, thank you. If you stuck with me for this long and listened to me blabber on for this long, I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody who really sticks with me during this and who appreciates my content, even though I'm just kind of a guy in a garage talking about psychic powers and evolution of humanity. But I mean, I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good about this environment. There's a whole lot more of us who are really quirky and in producing good content in strange environments than you might see in mass media. And quirky people make the world go round, and sometimes we're ahead of the curve. At any rate, thank you very much for watching. I hope this is interesting, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day.